Today's photo story is brought to you by MPB, the place to go for quality used camera gear in the US, UK and Europe.
The act of taking photographs normalized everything, and I wasn't having any of the negative sensations. I wasn't experiencing the anxiety, the PTSD, the depression. They weren't in my mind. I was just a photographer out making photographs.
The voice of Ian Mcdonald. I had a mail on the Friday edition of Photography Daily called the Friday Photowalk, which is a kind of gateway edition really to the weekend, an earbud companion while we take a walk together with our cameras and make some pictures. These are some of the photos listeners make, and we share those on the show page. I'll leave a link below so you can see some more. A lot of the messages I get on that show are ideas about projects or what folk are doing with their photography, and sometimes, like this example, we go a little deeper into what our cameras and picture making means to us on a slightly deeper level. Here's a mail then from Martin Leake. Hello Neil, I've been a photographer for nearly 2 decades now. Picked up my first Olympus camera when I was 16, and though the flavour of camera, as you call it, has changed, I can't think of a time where I haven't had a camera with me since those days. I'm not a professional, I've no desire to be, and I don't really have a speciality. The reason for writing is that I hear a fair amount of mails that talk about how photography has helped them through tricky patches in their lives. I suffer from acute anxiety, the result of a physical attack a long time ago, so just getting out at times has been really hard. It comes and goes, but one thing has remained a constant: my photography. It seems that being in a moment, focusing quite literally on something through an eyepiece, can help me realign my thoughts. I'd go as far to say that photography heals me at the times in my life where nothing else seems to have an influence on my mental state. Regards from Martin. We have spoken, yes, to photographers on the show for whom the quiet of photography, I suppose, has been immeasurably powerful. John Mannell, in episode 34, The Portrait Per Day Man, he talks about using photography to combat depression and anxiety. What started as a 365 project for John, making portraits of people on the street, taking him right out of his comfort zone initially when approaching strangers, has become a way of life for him, and a photo project within Instagram that just keeps on growing.
So you learn to process that when you are feeling anxious, not necessarily to close up, but to take stock of what you're doing and look at what the positive thing is, the positive act is that you're doing. So I've sort of learned to teach myself really sometimes that when you are anxious, the reason you're anxious is because you're doing something good.
I've spoken during a much longer video on this channel with Gabrielle Matola about how photography calms her mental state and how important the process of being enveloped in picture making is to her. And she also spoke with me on episode 16 about getting out there on that street.
It's just a gradual process of taking it easy with yourself. It's that line you have to learn of like how far to push, how far to pull. And the more I go out on the street and photograph people, the more I've just become comfortable with the discomfort of it.
And then Paul Sanders in episode 43, who swapped his career out from a stressful national newspaper behind the pictures desk to a life spent now discovering the still of photography. He is a supremely talented photographer and holds, if you will, workshops about the process of self-discovery through photography. From his website, Discover Still, I believe that photography has the power to influence our perception of the world around us, building a sense of appreciation and contentment simply by taking the time to notice what's around us and how that makes us feel.
Pictures have to come from within you. You're presented with a set of circumstances outside of your body, but the pictures are made from inside you.
And so I'd like to introduce you to a Canadian photographer, Ian Mcdonald, a former paramedic who found the strains and stresses of attending some reasonably horrific scenes that seemed every day at the time took a toll on him personally, manifesting as PTSD, something that the mindfulness of photography, he believes, healed him.
One of the things for me that really changed after I went through my PTSD and all of the counseling that helped me through it was a recognition of the importance of mindfulness and the importance of really being in the moment. And that's a catchphrase, it's a buzzword that we use nowadays. But the reality is, if I look back on my life, I don't know if I was always truly in the moment. It's hard to be present. And I think we've all had the experiences where maybe we're watching TV and answering emails and trying to be attentive to our family at the same time, and it doesn't work. And I think that creates an internal point of anxiety. And when I went through my counseling, we spent a lot of time on that, on the importance of being mindful and living in the moment and really just experiencing what's happening around you. And photography, much like playing guitar or any other form of art, really complements that because it's a task where you can be just focused. You've got a composition in front of you, you've got a moment in front of you, and you really can just take the time to create the best image that you see in your mind. And everything else, all of the noise, all of the day-to-day clutter, it just isn't in your mind at that time. And I think that's really where photography helped me in a great way through the PTSD.
Have you noticed it change other people as well?
Yes. I just think for some people, they don't hit the pause button in their lives enough. And sometimes slowing down is the most important thing you can do in life. And you see it in people when you get out for a walk, when you get out for a hike. And then when you add in having the camera with you, it just creates that moment where you can take a simple task like seeing and observing, and you can experience it in a new way through the lens and through your camera. And then it's also results oriented because you can see the results of your creation. If you're shooting digital, you can see it right away. And that moment where you can get away from everything that occupies your mind the other 23 hours of the day, and you can focus on creation and you can see the results immediately, it really just seems to focus people and it rejuvenates them, for lack of a better phrase.
Join me on the podcast Photography Daily for more of these stories. And if you have any questions or thoughts, I'll see you in the comments below.